the Krays, Ronnie and Reggie, remain iconic figures in the record books of crime history. Born into the gritty streets of London's East End, their journey from troubled youths to infamous gangsters is a tale of ambition, ruthlessness, and a dual life that straddled the line between the legitimate and the illicit. In the heart of London's East End, on October 24, 1933, Ronnie and Reggie Kray were born into a world of hardship and struggle. Their parents, Charles and Violet Kray, raised them in a working-class neighbourhood where poverty, overcrowding and adversity was the norm. The twins were the youngest of 3 children, and from an early age they shared a unique and unbreakable bond. Despite their dyslexia and challenging school years, Ronnie and Reggie were quick learners when it came to the streets of the East End. Petty theft and street fighting became their early pastimes, and they began to establish themselves within the local criminal community. As the Krays entered their teenage years, they transitioned from minor misdeeds to more serious criminal activities. The East End provided ample opportunities for criminal enterprises, and the twins were quick to capitalise on them. They soon became involved in protection rackets, demanding money from local businesses in exchange for protection from their own threats. Their ambition set them apart. The Krays had grand aspirations of becoming renowned gangsters and were willing to use any means necessary to achieve their goals. Their charisma and natural leadership qualities attracted other young criminals, who began to flock to the twins for guidance. In 1952, both Ronnie and Reggie were called up for national service in the British Army. While in the military, they were disciplined and learned valuable skills, but their criminal tendencies never truly left them. Ronnie was discharged from the army for psychiatric reasons, and Reggie completed his service. Upon their return to civilian life, the twins wasted no time in returning to a life of crime. They formed connections with the criminal underworld and began orchestrating armed robberies and heists, building a reputation for their audacity and ruthlessness. The Krays' criminal empire expanded rapidly, and they became known as formidable adversaries. The late 1950s and early 1960s marked the peak of the Krays' criminal activities. They were involved in various criminal enterprises, including illegal gambling, extortion, and violent enforcement. But it wasn't just their control over the East End that made the Krays infamous. It was the ruthlessness of their crimes. They left a trail of violence and fear in their wake. The twins orchestrated numerous armed robberies, often executed with precision that made it seem like they were conducting military operations. Their reputation for extreme violence and their willingness to use it against anyone who crossed them earned them a place among London's most feared figures. Amidst the chaos of their criminal activities, Ronnie and Reggie had a knack for building legitimate fronts and establishing connections with celebrities. These aspects of their lives added layers to their notoriety. In the mid-1960s, the Krays ventured into the nightclub business, which provided them with a front for their criminal activities. Their clubs, like the Regency and Esmeralda's Barn, became hotspots for the rich and famous. Celebrities, including actors, musicians, and politicians, were drawn to the Krays' charisma and the allure of their nightlife establishments. The twins rubbed shoulders with stars of the era, blurring the line between the criminal underworld and high society. They cultivated friendships with various celebrities, using their charm and connections to move seamlessly in both criminal and celebrity circles. Notable figures such as Judy Garland, Frank Sinatra, and Diana Dawes frequented their clubs and socialised with the twins. These high-profile connections added to their mystique and contributed to their infamy. The nightclub business was just one facet of the Krays' legitimate fronts. They also dabbled in other enterprises, including property ownership and management. These ventures provided a veneer of respectability while masking the true source of their wealth. Paradoxically, the Krays occasionally engaged in acts of charity within their East End community. They provided financial assistance to local families in need, creating a dual image of benevolence and malevolence. While some saw them as protectors of the neighbourhood, others were acutely aware of the violence that lurked beneath the surface. The Krays' ability to project an image of sophistication and charm in public contrasted sharply with their criminal ruthlessness. They understood the power of their reputation and used it to their advantage, becoming enigmatic figures in London's cultural landscape. Behind the veneer of ruthless gangsters, the Krays had complex personal lives that often played in stark contrast to their criminal activities. Ronnie and Reggie's relationship as twins was exceptionally close. They not only shared a criminal empire but a deep emotional bond. They were known to finish each other's sentences and could communicate with just a glance. This fraternal connection was both their strength and their Achilles' heel. Despite their reputation for violence, the twins had romantic relationships. Reggie was married to Frances Shea, whom he wed in 1965. Frances, however, struggled with the dark and dangerous world her husband inhabited and eventually left him. Ronnie, on the other hand, was openly gay, which was unusual for the time. He had several male partners throughout his life. Ronnie Kray was known to have mental health issues, including paranoid schizophrenia. This condition made him prone to erratic and violent behaviour. His time in prison saw periods of institutionalisation, and he often proved difficult for authorities to manage. Reggie Kray had a love for painting, which he pursued both before and during his time in prison. These artistic endeavours offered a glimpse into a more sensitive and creative side of Reggie. The twins had an older brother, Charles, who was not as deeply involved in their criminal activities. He led a more conventional life and distanced himself from his siblings' notoriety. The Kray family was known to be close-knit, and their parents, Charles and Violet, struggled with their sons' criminal lifestyles. The personal lives of the Krays were marked by complexity, contradictions, and tragedy. While they maintained close familial ties and romantic relationships, their involvement in organised crime and violence overshadowed all else. Their lives were a turbulent mix of affection and brutality. The Krays' ambition knew no bounds, and they soon found themselves in a violent feud with the rival Richardson gang. The conflict, born out of territorial disputes and personal animosities, resulted in a series of brutal confrontations that sent shockwaves through London's criminal underworld. It was the chilling murders attributed to the Krays, including the infamous murder of George Cornell and the disappearance of Jack the Hat McVitie, that truly put them on the authorities' radar. George Cornell, a member of the rival Richardson gang, had crossed paths with Ronnie Kray at the Blind Beggar pub. In a shocking act of violence, Ronnie shot Cornell in the head, in full view of witnesses. Cornell died around 3:30 a.m. the following morning at the National Hospital for Neurology and Neurosurgery, London. The audacity of the murder stunned the public and intensified the ongoing gang land war. But it was the murder of Jack the Hat McVitie that would haunt the Krays and contribute significantly to their eventual downfall. McVitie, a fellow criminal who had fallen out of favour with the twins, was lured to a flat in Stoke Newington. There, Reggie and Ronnie savagely attacked him, ultimately leading to his death. McVitie's body was never found, leaving a lingering mystery that captivated the media and law enforcement. The reasons behind McVitie's murder were complex. Despite having worked with them on numerous occasions, McVitie had been involved in disputes with the Krays, insulted Ronnie, and was considered unreliable in their criminal operations. Additionally, there were fears within the organisation, known as the Firm, that McVitie might become an informant, potentially exposing their criminal activities. This act of extreme violence created a ripple through London's underworld and served as a stark reminder of the Krays' ruthlessness. The police intensified their efforts to bring the twins to justice, and the public fascination with the McVitie case contributed to increased scrutiny of the Krays' criminal empire. The countdown to their eventual arrest, trial, and imprisonment had begun. The Krays' reign of terror came to a dramatic end when they were finally arrested in May 1968. Law enforcement had gathered enough evidence to bring the twins to trial for their various criminal activities, including murder, extortion, and violent enforcement of their protection rackets. Their trial, which began in January 1969, was a media spectacle. The Krays' celebrity connections and the notoriety of their crimes ensured that the proceedings received extensive coverage. Despite their attempts to manipulate the legal system, the evidence against them was overwhelming. In June 1969, Ronnie and Reggie Kray were found guilty of murder and sentenced to life imprisonment. Their days of ruling London's criminal underworld were over, but their legacy would endure. In the final chapters of their lives, the Kray twins faced their own harrowing fates. Ronnie, grappling with paranoid schizophrenia, breathed his last within the high-security confines of Broadmoor Hospital on March 17, 1995. His fragile mental state had long been a struggle, and his heart finally succumbed to the weight of his tumultuous existence. Reggie, the surviving twin, faced a different kind of battle. Diagnosed with terminal bladder cancer, he was granted release on compassionate grounds in August 2000. A mere 5 weeks after tasting freedom once more, Reggie too departed this world, passing away on October 1, 2000. His death marked the end of an era, closing the chapter on one of London's most notorious criminal dynasties. The legacy of the Krays is a complex one. While they are remembered as ruthless gangsters who terrorised London, they also left a long-lasting mark on the city's history. Their notoriety has been immortalised in books, films, and documentaries, making them enduring figures in popular culture. Their personal lives, criminal exploits, and connections with celebrities continue to fascinate and captivate audiences. The Kray twins remain symbols of both the glamour and brutality of organised crime, a legacy that continues to endure long after their deaths.